Voyage of the BSM Pandora. This is an old Ares game. I really liked Ares games. Soon after I had my S&T subscription, I visited SPI. Ares had been around for a little while, a few months. I picked up Barbarian Kings at that point. And then I ordered Ares. I don't know if I missed an issue in between. Anyway, this, you can see this is 1981, so fairly early in my era. This was one of my favorites, at least in terms of the concept of the game. Because of certain aspects, it's a paragraph system game with a limited number of paragraphs. It ends up repeating itself and feeling played out fairly quickly. But it's really this brilliant game in concept. Let me go over what the concept is kind of briefly before I get to the rules. But the rules themselves are fairly short. I think about 6 pages of rules. There's 16 pages total to the rule book. But most of it's the paragraph book. The actual game, 6 pages, including the cover page, which doesn't have a lot of rules, because it has this big picture. Including, so there's not a whole lot there, but even what is there is kind of difficult to assimilate without actually playing, because there are a lot of charts on here, and you have to kind of play out those charts and also see how the paragraphs work to get a real feel for the game. But I'll try to go over some of the basics of the rules, as well as when we get to the playthrough. That's really where you're going to see how the mechanics work in the game, because it's a hard game to describe, and it wouldn't be if I remembered it well, but it's been a long time. I've read the rules, but they don't sink in very well. I know that I have to play it some more to kind of understand the choices that you're making here. So I suggest you watch the first playthrough at least to get an idea of the game, a better idea of the game. But the rules are also important. So the concept of the game is that you're going to be this little spaceship, the Pandora, and you've got a crew, these pale blue guys. Only 7? I think I always ask myself this, only 7? I'm always worried I'm missing pieces, and it may well be. You've got a crew, and you're going to be exploring these planets for scientific reasons, largely to capture biological samples, animals and plants, but also anthropological, looking at ancient cities, finding ancient artifacts, and perhaps even finding an intelligent species, a new intelligent species. You have 3 choices in the game of how many months to play, either 10, 20, or 30. I always feel like 30 is actually not quite enough to explore everything. But that's okay. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I generally go with. I think I probably come up with some path that misses some key planets. But what's important here is you have the same map all the time. It would be kind of cool if it randomly generated a map, but maybe not too much, because there aren't enough paragraphs to support a really rich design. It's a shame that nobody extended this game. It would have been so great. This is a Butterfield design, and this is, I believe, the first paragraph system game that was made. Although there were Choose Your Own Adventure books, I think, prior to this. And it definitely takes from that. You have on the star chart different types of planets that you'll be exploring. And the size of the planet, which is going to affect your gravity, you actually want to go with low gravity because you can carry more crap up and down from it. And then the location, or really a hint towards the type of atmosphere you're going to be dealing with. Obviously, biospheres are going to be the best. Yeah, close and far may start going with some more exotic and remote. It'll come with some more exotic atmospheric conditions, which can cause problems for your exploration. Now, you get a point for exploring any planet, and it seems like, well, maybe intelligent races are more likely to show up in the biosphere, maybe animals are more likely. It's hard to tell, though, without really playing the game a lot and starting to track these things, or studying the paragraph book, which would ruin the game, as does playing it too much. Okay. You also have a bunch of equipment, just different tools that you can bring with you, and a bunch of different bots. And these will all be recorded over here. This is how many you have in, say, a 10-month tour, 20-month, 30-month, the extra boxes. And this all has to be tracked because as you lose or damage equipment, you're going to get, you don't have it available, and you may get penalized on the victory point chart. Likewise, you keep track of the endurance of all your characters, which affects their stats. Very much like things like War of the Ring or over there, or Freedom in the Galaxy up there. It builds on those type of games in some sense, although the character stats are not tracked on cards. They're being tracked only on the counters themselves. And you also roll up intelligence for all your characters, which is sort of the only random stat generation. I kind of wish, and it wouldn't be hard, that the characters didn't necessarily start off with fixed stats, that you had more random stats and then assigned them to rolls based on those stats. But whatever, it all works out okay. It's not like you're going to play this a whole hell of a lot of times. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have the capacity to hold up to that. You have these explored markers and some various markers to record, the atmosphere and environment on the planet. And then you have a bunch of these yellow markers, which are going to be critters who also have stats. And one of your goals in the game, one of the victory point goals, is to discover the stats on the creatures. And then there are also alien artifacts, which may actually be usable as tools. I seem to remember one of them was like there's a monofilament sword or something like that you can use as a weapon in the game. For the terrain on the map, you can see it's very, very varied. Some of the paragraphs will say something like, ignore all the caves in this region, but use it. So what you do is when you explore a planet, you're going to roll up, see what environment you discover, and then you have a chance to bug out and try a different environment at a cost of a month. Now remember, you have, in my case, 30 months to play out the game. The 10-month game is just too short to do much of anything in. But you have, bugging out costs you a month, so it might be unpleasant to do so. Now you're going to get a victory point per planet you explore, but that's not going to get you much. There's only 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planets. In order to win the game, you have to get twice the number of months that you're out worth of victory points. So in a 30-month game, I'm going to have to collect 60 victory points. Now, if you look, some of the creatures and items have a decent number of victory points on them, and if you get lucky in a short game and discover something like a cool item that gives you heavy victory points, you can almost be assured of the win just off that lucky break. In the 30-month game, that luck's probably going to spread out a little bit more. You use the counters on here to track things. So for example, the gravity, I'd be tracking like this and say, hey, it's near weightless or it's light. Likewise, and I may want to do it like this, the atmosphere, hey, there's none, it's thin. You can see the track isn't really large enough to handle some collisions on it, which can be a slight problem. You have display where you put your characters and equipment, and then you'll be representing them on the board with particular things. So the shuttle might have landed there, and then you have a foot expedition wandering around outside of it with the characters and equipment split between those, or maybe you have the rover. Okay, let's see what else. We have this general track, which is going to keep track of the time that you're on the planet. It also keeps track of how long your expedition is going as a whole, or your tour is going. So let's say you start with a 30-month tour. You start here and you start working your way down. And then if you make it down to 0, it flips over and you start extending the tour. You have to make it back to the entry box by the end of the 30 months, or you will start getting penalized victory points. And I think it's 5 victory points per month that you exceed your tour. So you want to plan carefully. If you did the whole thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That only leaves you 9 extra months to explore. It costs you 1 month for each space you move. So you're not going to get all the planets in a 30-month tour. And that's kind of a problem because I'll always say, okay, well, if I'm not going to get them all, I want to get the yellows at least. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That leaves me 12 months to explore. I can probably do that. So I end up maybe hitting almost all of them, but maybe leaving something like New Alto out because, quite honestly, you end up not being able to make all the planets and do some of the other stuff that you have to do in your turn. Okay, let's try to get more specific than these generals, though. So, counters have values on them, which are represented. So, for example, a character has a capture combat rating, a kill combat rating, a weight, that's how much he weighs, a port, how much he can carry, and then a speed, which is, I believe, how many hexes he can move in a given amount of time, but I'm not sure. It may be something else. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is something else because it costs like an hour to... It may just be a combat rating. You also have an intelligence rating, which you roll up. Bots have similar ratings. Capture combat, kill combat, speed, port, and weight. They can carry stuff. Tools will have a capture combat, kill combat available, speed, port, and weight. It's possible that tools can carry stuff in particular, and I'm probably not looking through this well enough to see. In particular, the rover here is a little vehicle that's able to carry 20 things with a speed of 10. Kind of like Source of the Nile. In between, let's see if I can find that sucker. It's got to be up here somewhere in this area. Oh, I'm just not seeing it. It's got to be in this area. There it is. Aha! Right in front of me. Okay, kind of like in Source of the Nile, you're going to be producing an expedition to explore the planet where you balance out, how much you want to carry, who's taking what, and you have to do a little bit of math to do that. Addition and subtraction, no real big deal here. A little bit of calculator work. It might take you 5-10 minutes to figure out your expedition before you launch it, but this is your most important decision at the beginning of each planetary exploration. What do you need to handle this planet? And then you find out what it actually deals with you and whether or not you chose well as you play it out in kind of a role-playing type environment. Unlike Source of the Nile, you don't just have a bunch of cash, you have a limited set of resources for your entire mission over here. And you have to kind of worry about that. Specific creatures also have ratings. Those ratings become apparent as you need them from the paragraph or from combat that you engage in, and you have to worry about them. Now, they'll have an intelligence, combat, aggression, and speed. You get victory points for discovering things about creatures. If you capture creatures and bring them aboard your ship, you can study them and get additional victory points for that. Artifacts, obviously, are things which you carry around. I don't know if they have a weight rating on them. They may say something like that. The alien weapon, that's what I was talking about, not a monofilament sword. That's another game. It has ratings like a tool, and it can be used as a tool. So, you'll start at a specific paragraph at the beginning of the game, and then each time you leave a planet, you get to this kind of generic paragraph that says you can move in space, or you can do space-like things, repairs, healing, stuff like that. In order to move, what you do is you move the Pandora a certain number of hexes, however many you like, and then you move the tour time marker 1 month forward for each hex that you move. You roll 2 dice, and if you roll less than or equal to the number of hexes you moved, you'll have an interstellar event. And for interstellar events, you're going to just roll on this interstellar event table. That'll throw you to a paragraph, and you may have other tables to deal with within that, or something happens, whatever. It may stop you. So for example, if I move 1, 2, 3, it may say in an empty hex. Well, then I got to move back here. My time gets reset there. I go to the last empty hex, or the last hex that fits that criteria that I moved through, and I resolve the event there. Some events may fail just because I didn't do anything exciting. There's some special things I can do whenever I'm at paragraph 050, which is the you're in space and get to choose to do something. I can repair tools and or bots. I spend a month of time. If the maintenance officer is aboard, I get to repair every tool and bot that I have on board the ship. If not, I get to repair how many? 4. I can heal characters up to 4 endurance points by expending a month. If I have the medical officer on board and not trying to heal himself, I can heal 6 endurance points that way. And again, those get erased off of the damage chart up here for the characters. And I'll have to write those up in special paper. And you can study creatures. If the science officer is aboard, you don't have to spend any time to do this. You determine all the ratings to all the creatures that you've captured. Remember, you get victory points for these. You can do these simultaneously, so you can heal characters, repair tools, and study creatures. If you don't have the science officer on board, it takes a month of tour time and you discover everything. Basically, the rest of the crew has to do that work. Now, when you hit a planet, you get to prepare your expedition, and you're going to be doing, as I said, a certain amount of worrying about what you can carry. You have to worry about what the shuttle itself can carry. So if it's going on a near weightless planet, it can carry 120 stuff, but it can only carry 30 stuff to one of those huge planets. So exploring those huge planets is kind of a pain in the butt. The rover can carry X amount as well. And it's got a port value of 20 on it on the counter, but that's not really correct. You worry about what it's got here. It won't even work in an impressive environment. And then you worry about what each character can carry, which is modified by the weight of the planet. And each tool, etc., has its own weight value. So you add up everything. People have a weight value as well, which has to be accounted for. And you can buy supply points, which I don't remember how much weight they have. You have to. I think you're allowed to carry 30 with you for an expedition. No more than that's ever allowed. And they have a weight of 1 each. And you'll want to carry them with your expedition, but you can land them in the shuttle, and then additional ones in the shuttle. You bring your 30 down, say you take 10 with you on your expedition. You travel a certain distance from the shuttle, and you're dropping off these little explored markers on your way. And then, hey, you're out. Well, you can do fast movement, which I'll explain briefly, and go pick up your additional supply points and then head out in a different direction. You usually can't explore one of these whole mini-maps in the course of an expedition, and I think you're only allowed 1 expedition per planet. Okay, when you're actually moving to explore, you'll be doing expedition actions, and you have the right to explore a hex, or hasty move, or conduct a special action. If you explore the hex you're occupying, or move into and explore an adjacent hex, that's going to cost a certain number of hours. And this is all based on the terrain effects chart. It gives you the cost to enter by the different tools, either with rover or on foot. And it gives a cost to actually explore the hex. And some things you can't explore or enter, like flowing lava, which would be over here. I can sit up, getting old, and I hauled a big thing up 2 flights of stairs. Well, 3 sort of. I'm on the 3rd floor, but there's 3 flights. One of them's bigger than the other 2. Okay. So let's see, what else can you do here? When you actually explore a hex, you'll be rolling on the exploration matrix, where you roll a couple of dice against each other. It gives you a paragraph, and that paragraph will then branch you out based on the terrain and other information of the planet to other paragraphs which you worry about. Some hexes have multiple types of terrain in them. So for example, I'm not going to worry about the caves because that's a separate thing. You're going to be at a different elevation there. This one is going to have both solid lava and a big crack, an abyss. Well, I'd have to worry about both those terrains here. Solid lava, it would cost me 2 to enter on foot. And the abyss, well, that doesn't cost anything extra. But when I explore, it costs me 4, plus the abyss is 2, which will be 6. The supply modifier is another column. I'll worry about that when we get to eating supplies, which is fairly soon. But I want to deal with a couple of other things. Sometimes you can do an expedition action, well, quite often. And that's basically like with the tour, the voyage actions. You take some time to either repair, heal a character. You can abandon equipment for free. You can shift equipment from the shuttle. I don't remember if that takes any time. No time for that. Or you can decide to go home, in which case, back to the Pandora, in which case you go back to paragraph 50 and you get to do a space action. Okay, the healing and the repairing tools, basically you choose an amount of time that you want to spend on it, and then you roll. So you roll 1 die for repairing a tool. You can only pick 1, I think. And if you roll less than the number of hours you spent on it, you repair it. When things are damaged, they'll be flipped over like this to indicate that the lighting's bad there, to indicate that they're useless, but not destroyed. Things can also be destroyed. If you have the toolkit and or the maintenance officer, each of those will subtract 2 from your die roll. But you have to, I believe, spend at least some time. If you're repairing a bot, you need the bot kit instead of the toolkit. And I do believe you have to spend an hour on it at least to try. That's not clear from the rules as I read it. Healing a character works the same kind of way. You spend an amount of time, but here you roll 2 dice, less than or equal to the number of hours. Less than the number of hours. You gain an endurance point for that. The medical officer and the med kit, or the med kit subtract 3. If they're both present, you only roll 1 die instead of 2, but with no modifications. I guess that's a slight advantage over just a -3, but I don't think it's worth having both, actually. It's such a slight advantage. You can drop stuff. Can you cache it? No, it's just considered destroyed. You can't cache equipment and go back and get it. But, you could probably steal rules from Source the Nile for caching. Say there's a 50% chance you re-find it if you go back to it. I don't know. Expedition supply. So this is an interesting factor in this game. This works in with the time that you're on the planet. And you'll have this expedition time marker, which will also be moving here. Now, supply checks are going to be based on an overall value here. So oppressive supply checks happen quite often. These are going to be based on the weight of the size of the planet, essentially. If you're in an oppressive gravity, heavy gravity, Earth-like, light, or near weightless, that affects how much time you can spend without expending supply. And as you do things, you expend supply. And remember, time is the movement point. That's how many hours you spent doing something. As you do things, you're going to spend supply on there's two factors to supply use. Okay. One is going to be based on the number of supply points that you have available in your expedition. Each character counts as 2 supply points, 2 supply consumers. Each bot counts as 1. Each tool that has a little supply marker on it. Well, this one has 2. It counts as a single user. The rover counts as 2. Here's one with 1, an armor rig. You can't see very well with that light. Okay. What you're going to do with that is you total that total. This is every time you hit this, your supply check marker. You total that total, and then you roll a die, and you divide that into that total. You round down, and that's how many supply points you just ate. So if you had a supply point total of, say, 2 characters is 4, 2 bots brings it to 5, 6, and say the rover 7, 8, and a tool like the scanner or the neuroscanner brings you to 9, you'd roll a die, and if you rolled a 6, 6 goes into 9 only once, so you'd lose 1 supply point. But if you rolled a 3, 3 goes into 9 3 times, you'd lose 3 supply points. If you rolled a 2, you'd lose 4, 1, you'd lose 9. So you could eat all your supply very quickly with some bad die rolls. Then you have a second charge for supply, which is the life support value of the planet. Now, what is the life support value of the planet? I don't remember what that's going to be. That may be determined. Oh, there it is. Okay, so that's just going to be one of the values that you generate from the planet when you first hit it. And you'll take that value, add it to the terrain supply modifiers. Remember over on the terrain chart, we had a supply modifier that can increase or decrease how habitable that terrain is. And again, you roll a die and divide that in, round down, and that's how many additional supply points you eat. So again, you could go through your supply pretty quickly on each check, or you could get lucky and not go through it. If you run out of supply, what happens? Okay, well, here's 2 things. You're allowed to use the shuttle supply marker a number of spaces less than or equal to any characters you leave on board the shuttle. All other supply expenditures have to come from the expedition supply marker. Now, you may not have a reason for leaving someone at the shuttle, though. It's generally probably not a good idea to leave him there just to eat his 1 supply point that he uses up. If you don't have enough supply points, you can spend endurance points on people, bots, or tools. Bots and tools becoming damaged or destroyed. The first such endurance point has to be taken from a character, the second from a bot or tool, the third from a character, alternating like that. You don't want to run out of supply. It's going to cause you some serious problems. Now, it's possible that you'll be in combat. Very likely at some points. Some paragraphs will say that something attacks you. There's a surprise check. The scanner gives you a bonus on that. Hasty movement gives you a penalty against that. If you're hasty movement without a scanner, you're automatically surprised. And that'll affect the instructions that the paragraph hits. Then you have to choose an encounter strategy. Communicate, capture, kill, or flee. And there's the encounter strategy table. Flip this over here, because we're going to be... And that'll give you, again, a die roll, which is based on the creature's intelligence, the aggression of the creature, and the column that you choose. That'll give you a paragraph where you see how that creature worked out. Now, if you have to calculate things like intelligence and aggression, or intelligence and aggression for that one, or aggression for the flee option, you've learned something about that creature by determining its actual value. And you'll determine those ratings by taking the values of the creature, which are essentially modifiers on the creature rating table, and you'll get a value there. Okay. An asterisk indicates some special instructions will apply on the encounter strategy table, and you worry about them within the paragraph. If you have to fight, at that point, let's say you tried communication, you might have to declare you're doing capture or kill combat. You calculate the combat rating of the expedition using the capture or kill combat ratings of each eligible unit. Characters, bots, possible weapons if they're using them. Each character can only use one tool, the bots cannot. You determine the combat rating of the creature for the proper combat. You subtract the creature from the total group combat rating, you get a differential, and you roll a die on the combat results table, which will give a result which could be killed or captured, whatever you declared, and some damage, or maybe the creature's still alive. Killing is easier than capturing by far. If the creature escapes, if you kill the creature, it's gone. If you capture it and you have an E-cage, you can put the creature in this E-cage and it becomes a way you can carry him around for only one weight, the same weight as the E-cage has. If you don't have an empty E-cage, you have to release the creature. Once you take that creature aboard the Pandora, he's put in the special holding boxes for the Pandora, and when the Wreck of the Pandora game comes along in my video review, you get to see those creatures escape. It would be kind of cool, they don't match up, to have the creatures from here actually populate for Wreck of the Pandora, but I don't think that'll work. I haven't played Wreck yet, but it came out before this, so that's unlikely. Maybe some moves article came out with ways to handle that. We'll see when we play Wreck to see if it fits in well with this. If a creature escapes kill or capture, you have to choose a new encounter strategy after you take any damage points you take. Okay, your damage points, you can use a combination of endurance loss, expedition supply loss. You can't use shuttle supply points or endurance to people who aren't in the combat itself, or tools that aren't in it. 1 damage point equals an endurance point or 2 supply points. So you can spend 2 supply points for a damage. And the endurance comes as an X on the crew log. If you fill up all the X's, the character's dead. Now you can also take damage to other things. But lost endurance reduces your port rating, and damaged tools and bots can't be used. Let's see. Let me see where. An endurance point comes from a character with an X. An endurance point comes from a tool or a bot by flipping the counter over to damaged. Damage to a character's enviro-rig flips this counter over. 2 endurance points are removed from a tool or bot by removing its counter from the expedition. And it's destroyed now completely. Expedition supply points will just be removed from the track. Sometimes units can take damage just from the paragraph rather than combat, and you can lose anything in the expedition that way. All right. And your victory points are going to be creatures captured, or worth 1 each, plus any victory point bonus that they have indicated on them. That comes if you capture them. Oh, my hand. This camera is not as good as my old one in terms of fitting my hand nicely. Artifacts returned to the Pandora are worth victory points as additional victory points. Each planet explored is worth 1. And you lose victory points, 10 for each character you get killed, 1 for each endurance point that a character has lost at the end of the game. Remember, you can heal them on planet. It's probably not worth sending injured characters down to planet to heal at a quicker rate than off planet. But once you get off planet, you can spend months to recover. You lose a victory point for each bot or rover that's damaged or destroyed at the end of the game. 1 for each type of tool that you've completely lost, either damaged or destroyed. And 5 for each additional month you take. And then, if your net victory points is twice the amount of months that you were out or longer. You win. That's about it. This has been a fun game when I played it. I stopped playing it very much. You know, when I first got it, I probably played it like 4 times in quick succession, and I very quickly tired out. Then every few years I would play it, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. More recently, it's been kind of a once a decade thing, maybe. It does not have a lot of replayability value because it is such a small story. The paragraph book is so small compared to something like a later paragraph game. Let's find it. All right, maybe we can't find it because the box is destroyed. Somewhere under here, under Magic Realm there, is Tales of the Arabian Nights. 2 destroyed boxes. That's a much, much richer paragraph game, and you're able to replay it a significant number of times, although it too tires out. And then something else from the same genre of paragraph games is, of course, something I can't wait to get to eventually, Ambush and its brethren of expansions. Now, Ambush doesn't have a whole lot of replayability either because the stories in that are fixed, but they're very, very rich combat stories. This is the one that started them all off. Oh, there's another one. I can't show you it because it's in the file cabinet now. That's Return of the Stainless Steel Rat, which has got a sort of a take on it. It's another Ares magazine game. Has a few more paragraphs in it. It's got a richer paragraph set than this does. And it's kind of this murder mystery on board a space station. Unfortunately, I'm missing some pieces for that, which one of the cool things that it allows, though, is you pick a couple of pieces at the beginning of the game randomly, and they set the plot secretly. So it's like Clue, where you don't know exactly who's in the envelope, right? It's got something like that. And there's some information on the backs of the counters that you choose, which helps drive the story. And eventually you can get enough clues to determine the answer and try to solve the murder, as it were, by calling everybody on the station together. It's kind of an interesting little thing. Anyway, let's get playing this.